The following presentation was recorded at the 2025 Southeast Linuxfest in Charlotte, North Carolina. It is licensed under a Creative Commons license. For more information on the Southeast Linuxfest, visit www.southeastlinuxfest.org. Come join us next June.
Okay, hello everyone. Hope you all are doing well. This mic is oddly balanced because there's one speaker there. That's okay. So today I want to talk to you guys about a project that's actually been out for quite a while. It's actually pretty old. It's pretty OG. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of it. It's called Monero. And in my opinion, Monero is the true cypherpunk cryptocurrency. It's the real cryptocurrency. And I'll get into exactly why. And my name is tuxsudo. I work for Cake Wallet. I do UI design and UI development for them. And I have a website, tux.pizza. I haven't posted there in like over a year. There's probably not that much on there right now. But you could follow me there if you'd like to, and I'm on X as well. So to start off, I want to talk about our idea of cryptocurrency. Usually, when I talk to some random person about crypto, I ask them about Bitcoin, or they give me their opinion about Bitcoin. It usually falls along the line of somewhere around it being this like internet hacker money, and it's like super anonymous, and that's what criminals use. But it actually really couldn't be any further from the truth, because the truth is Bitcoin is actually not very private, which is kind of contradictory to the word crypto. Because when you look at the word crypto, it's comes from the ancient Greek kryptos, which means hidden or secret, right? So when you think about cryptocurrency, it should usually imply you're hiding something. Now, Bitcoin uses cryptography, but it's not really using it to hide much, because everything that happens on Bitcoin is fully transparent. Unfortunately, Bitcoin is not private, and because it's not private, it's not fungible. It doesn't scale very well. It lacks long-term security, and it's a future liability. And I will address all of these points. But because of how Bitcoin works, it is a typical transparent UTXO proof-of-work blockchain. And everything that happens on the blockchain is fully transparent, and that's just how it works. It's a public ledger. If I were to send you $5 worth of Bitcoin, I would get your Bitcoin address, I would create a transaction, and all the details of that transaction are fully public. Now, when you look at the blockchain explorer, you're just going to see some addresses, and you're going to see a specific amount of Bitcoin being transferred from one address to another. The issue mainly comes in when third parties can correlate an individual or merchant or an institution with those addresses. And that's how they create these giant transaction graphs. And that's how they track everyone across Bitcoin. Over time, they're just able to correlate addresses to individuals. So Monero tries to address a lot of these issues with Bitcoin, and it does so pretty well. Monero has actually been around for quite a long time. It came out in 2014 is when it was first deployed. It is a unique blockchain. It's not a fork of Bitcoin. It was forked from Bytecoin and is using the CryptoNote v2 protocol, which was authored by Nicholas van Saberhagen. The block time is 2 minutes instead of Bitcoin's 10 minutes, so it's got a much faster confirmation time. Its hash function or its mining algorithm is random X, which is ASIC-resistant. And I'll talk about that a little more later. I guess the HDMI is having a hard time here. The block reward is 0.6 XMR, and we are currently in tail emission, which I'll also address on a later slide. These are the basics. Otherwise, it works pretty similarly to Bitcoin. It is a proof-of-work chain. It uses a sort of UTXO-like model, but it has a lot of specific features that kind of deviate it quite heavily from how Bitcoin works at the base protocol level. So an interesting tidbit is that Satoshi, back in the day when he was still active before he disappeared, he actually talked about a lot of these issues inherent to Bitcoin. And there's this particular image here that is from bitcointalk.org, which is an old Bitcoin forum where he actually talked about some specific issues in Bitcoin that sound very similar to features that were directly developed into Monero that addressed these concerns that he had directly, like ring SIG-T, ring confidential transactions, and stealth addresses and ring signatures. All these things combined are privacy features that take what is typically a transparent blockchain and makes it quite untraceable. And to actually take a look at the privacy features of Monero, these are the first few privacy features. The top three being related to transactions directly, the last one on the bottom being more of keeping node usage private, trying to detach a transaction from an IP address. And each of these features together, let me see if I can adjust this thing real quick. Well, maybe there's nothing I can do over here. That might just be how it is. Each of these privacy features by themselves are not that powerful, but when you take these features and put them together and build them onto the protocol and make it default, it becomes incredibly powerful, and it creates an incredibly private blockchain and makes it quite untraceable. So the first feature that is actually going to be deprecated fairly soon, probably within the next year or 2 years, it's going to be replaced with something better. It's called ring signatures. So ring signatures essentially obfuscates the sender by using previous outputs as decoys to all sign the transaction. So in a typical UTXO blockchain, you have inputs and outputs. An input is what the sender is taking to send to someone else. And in Monero, you have real inputs, and every real input, could be just like a coin, you could have one or could have more inputs. Every real input has what's called a ring. And this ring is filled with decoy transactions that happened in the past. They already exist on the blockchain. They have been selected by the wallet to use them as decoys. So if I were to initiate a Monero transaction, the wallet is going to use a decoy selection algorithm to select 15 other decoys of real inputs that already exist on the blockchain, and it's going to use those to all sign the transaction. So it's making it look like this one input could have been signed by 15 other inputs on the blockchain. And this heavily obfuscates the real spend is, what the real spend exactly is, who the real sender is, and it is plausible deniability. So by seeing how this works, you can probably imagine why this isn't the best privacy. It's not perfect privacy. It's not perfectly encrypting something. It is plausible deniability. But as a coin goes further through more and more transactions, it gets exponentially harder to trace it because it's 16 every transaction. And that's just on the sender side. There are more protections on the receiver side and hiding the amount. But this is actually going to be replaced fairly soon, within hopefully the next year or 2 years, with what's called full chain membership proofs plus, which will essentially get rid of this whole rig signature scheme, and it will use zero knowledge proofs to prove that the input in a transaction could be any other input on the entire blockchain, which is going to take it from an anonymity set of just 16 to 100 million plus. So in that time, when the hard fork happens, Monero will effectively be untraceable. As it is right now, however, it's still very, very good. And there has been some leaked videos from Chainalysis, a guy talking to the IRS, basically singing praises of how untraceable Monero is already, showing off some tools that they try to use to trace transactions. However, from what they made it look like, they can't really get very far with it with the current technology. So essentially, this hard fork is just going to be getting ahead of the curve and making it even better and future-proofing it even more. So the next privacy feature, and honestly, this one's my favorite. It's called stealth addresses. It's a very clever and simple way to kind of fix the issue of address reuse. So this is a very prevalent problem in Bitcoin. If you're like a Bitcoiner and you use Bitcoin a lot, you probably know about this, and you probably never reuse the same address for receiving funds. If most people who use Bitcoin a lot, they will not use the same address to receive funds again. It's a privacy concern because of how the blockchain is traceable. And if you're sending funds to the same address constantly, there's a correlated relationship there between one address and another. And maybe you don't want that. Now, maybe you're not doing anything totally wrong, but once again, as I talked about in one of the first slides, Bitcoin is a future liability. And by that specifically, I mean, because of its traceable nature and because it's not fungible, one Bitcoin, let's say that I withdrew some Bitcoin from a centralized exchange. I use that Bitcoin, I either buy something with it, I swap it to another coin. At some point, it was in my possession and it was tied to me directly to my name, and now it's not in my possession anymore. That coin ends up in someone else's hand, and then they do a criminal activity with it. And even though I'm not the actual person who did that criminal activity, if people who are looking at the blockchain and doing chain analysis, if they can tie that back only to me, then I will be implicated in that crime. Even if I don't end up being charged for anything because I didn't do it, I will end up being a part of that graph, essentially. And so that could cause issues with like, oh, maybe you have to deal with proving that you're innocent and that you didn't commit that crime. You have to have some kind of proof to show that you actually did get rid of the Bitcoin. And that's kind of a scary place to be in. And this has actually happened to several people before. There's a lot of people who have been prosecuted just based on owning Bitcoin previously that ended up in someone else's hands. This is a real thing. Chainalysis is becoming a much bigger industry as crypto is becoming larger and larger. So stealth addresses, basically what it does is it takes away this issue of being able to just look up an address on chain and see every transaction it's been a part of and seeing how much it currently has. The other main issue with using just Bitcoin addresses publicly is, let's say this is a pretty common use case. Let's say you want to have your Bitcoin address, just a SegWit or Taproot address on your website, donation website, right? You have a donation address. That address, somebody can just take it and look it up on a blockchain explorer like mempool.space, and they can see how much it currently has, how much it's previously had, where all the transactions have gone. So if you sent it somewhere else, if you sent the Bitcoin on that address to maybe a cold wallet that has tens or maybe hundreds of Bitcoin, this gives people an ability to pry into your wealth and to see how much you have. And that could potentially make you a target if people can just publicly see how much you have, like on some cold wallet. So that's where stealth addresses comes in. Stealth addresses is, once again, it's very clever, but it's a unique way to kind of sort of solve this issue. So what happens with Monero if you're sending a transaction? You will take a public-facing address. So I will take someone's address that they posted on a website or that they've sent to me directly. And instead of my wallet just sending funds directly to that address, it's going to generate a unique one-time address based off of public keys from that address. It's going to be taking a public view key and a public spend key that's embedded in that address. And the sender is going to the client, and the client side of the sender, this all happens behind the scenes automatically. It's very quick. The sender is going to generate a unique one-time address using their transaction private key, the key that belongs to that input. And it's going to generate a unique one-time address that shows up on chain that only the receiver can know is theirs and only they can spend from. So effectively, no funds are actually going to that public-facing address. And when you look that address up on the blockchain, you're not going to see anything useful. And there is a sort of downside to this, is that the receiver needs to do somewhat expensive on-device scanning to compare and see what inputs in a block belongs to its private keys. So that's where synchronization comes in with Monero. If you use like Bitcoin, you're probably used to opening the wallet and immediately your wallet is synced. And that's because the server is doing most of that work for you, and also because it's less computationally expensive because you don't have to deal with these unique addresses on chain and compare your private keys in the same way. So that is a potential downside. However, it's gotten much better over time, and syncing Monero is not as big of a deal, especially if you're in like a place that has very reasonable internet. And some wallets, like the wallet that I work on, has background sync capabilities, so your wallet can synchronize in the background while you're not using it, so it'll be ready to go as soon as you open it. But that's basically how stealth addresses work. And I think this is one of the most crucial components to how Monero tries to protect people's money and how much they have. And this actually sort of exists in Bitcoin. This was sort of designed originally for Bitcoin, and it exists right now as silent payments. However, it's just one piece on Bitcoin that you can use by itself. With Monero, this is one piece out of several combined that makes it very private. So just continuing on the topic of these specific privacy features, the last one that's part of this main trifecta of generating transactions on Monero would be bulletproofs. So bulletproofs is basically just zero-knowledge range proofs, right? They're zero-knowledge proofs that hide the amount, and they're using range proofs to prove that the amount is within a specific range to make sure some malicious actor can't just create Monero out of thin air, and it perfectly hides the amount, right? So that, and combined with stealth addresses and combined with weak signatures, really blinds any observer of the blockchain to actually what's going on. All those things combined are very powerful. So you can't actually see who sent it. You can't, I mean, you can maybe try to correlate who sent it because of ring signatures, but you can't see who really received it, and you can't even see the amount. I will mention, however, Coinbase transactions, which are transactions that occur when a miner finds a block, the reward. Those amounts are transparent, and that's used for basically auditability of the blockchain. So every time there is a mining reward, that amount is able to be seen publicly, but any transactions that you make normally, the amount will be using bulletproofs to be hidden. And another feature is Dandelion++, and this feature helps to hide the origin IP address of a transaction submitted to the network. So typically, if you are submitting a transaction to, let's say, to the Bitcoin network, that node is going to immediately broadcast transaction to every node it can. And this makes it much easier for other nodes and other potentially malicious actors to correlate what IP address that transaction originated from. And if this is a node you're hosting on your own infrastructure, on your own network, that could potentially be correlating a transaction specifically to your house or your location or your public IP address. Monero tries to address this by introducing Dandelion++, and Dandelion++ takes it a little bit further, where instead of immediately broadcasting that transaction to the whole network, it sort of goes through hops. So think of it maybe sort of like Tor, where what the first node you submit the transaction to isn't going to tell another node, that node's going to tell another node, and after a specific period of time, based on some timestamps, then the nodes are going to decide to push it out and send it out to as many nodes as it can. It's got two phases. And that tries to help obfuscate where the transaction originally came from. And this actually works really well. Now, where this doesn't actually help you is if you're using a spy node. And this actually happened several months ago, maybe even late last year. Chainalysis, which is a blockchain surveillance and analysis company, they actually were hosting a ton of spy nodes that they put on a public website. There's this website called Monero.fail where you could basically put up a node, you could put it in your address, so you could share your node for other people to use. Sounds pretty innocent, right? Well, Chainalysis figured they could just put up a bunch of spy nodes and people would use them, and this actually ended up happening. And because you're submitting a transaction directly to the spy node, Dandelion++ doesn't help you there. They're going to see exactly the IP address that submitted the transaction. So as long as you are using a trusted node or using your own node that you self-host at home, Dandelion++ will be beneficial to you. So just don't use any random nodes and you will still get the benefits of Dandelion++. And so on the topic of scalability in Bitcoin, there's been a lot of debates for like over a decade at this point for how large block sizes should be in Bitcoin, right? There was this big versus little block debate, and Bitcoin sort of stayed on the smaller side of block sizes, which is around 1 megabyte, a little bit more like 1.2 megabytes if you include SegWit, whereas Bitcoin Cash forked off of Bitcoin, made a really large block size. Monero tried to take a different approach to it. It tried to decide that, hey, instead of having a really small or really large static block size, what if we could just scale it? What if we just scale it up and down based on demand? So that's literally what it does. It takes the median size of the last 100 blocks and decides based on the amount of block fill to either raise it or to decrease it. And at the moment, I believe Monero blocks are on 300 kilobytes, which is the base minimum that a block size can be. But we've seen, especially last year, there was sort of some spam going on. And we were actually able to see the dynamic block sizes in action. It grew to help accommodate those extra transactions. And there's some other factors and some other checks and balances in play here. So if the block size does expand, the actual reward decreases a little bit. And the reward decreases a little bit. And it tries to make up for... It tries to calculate that based on potentially how much transaction fees there are. So if fees are higher, it's going to also raise the block size, which will accommodate the loss of block reward for miners, essentially. But that just helps it to be much more scalable long term and helps to prevent this issue of having just a single static block size that either wastes resources or creates a lot of congestion. Because this has been a very prevalent issue with Bitcoin, especially last year, due to the very strict block size limit. It hasn't been as bad recently, but last year specifically, people were paying upwards of $30, $50 US sometimes to send a transaction on the layer 1, which is like ridiculous, right? Like what's even the point of using it at that point if you're paying $30 to send a transaction on the L1? And I know some people might bring up Lightning, the L2, but Lightning doesn't fully solve the scalability issues of the L1 because ironically, to get into Lightning in the first place, you have to do an on-chain L1 transaction. And if it's already congested, you're going to be paying a ton of fees anyway. So it's not a perfect solution, and there are things that can be done on the L1 to at least improve the scalability greatly, even with a complementary L2. And that's kind of what dynamic block sizes tries to do. And Monero network is still fairly small, so we aren't currently in a larger block size. I think we're still using the base block size right now, but it's starting to get a lot more popular and it's starting to get closer to needing to expand. So we'll probably see this happen over the next year or so. And then the last point on this slide is random X. So another issue with Bitcoin is the fact that mining is very centralized around these massive mining farms that can afford these very expensive ASICs. These ASICs are specifically designed systems to mine the algorithm used for Bitcoin. And they are very, very expensive, and this allows individuals and institutions to sort of centralize hash power much easier. Now, hash power centralization is also a concern of Monero, but they've tried to address this by creating Random X, which is the next iteration of what was CryptoNight v2, I believe. It is a proof-of-work algorithm that is optimized for CPUs, so desktop CPUs specifically. And the way it does this, it uses a lot of different instructions and a lot of different features of modern x86 desktop CPUs to try and make it hard to develop a specific chip to mine Monero really, really well. So because of this, the best processor you could use today to mine Monero would probably be a high-end Ryzen 9 desktop processor, which is fairly accessible to the average person. And there has been some attempts in the past to develop some custom RISC-based systems, RISC-V-based systems with custom chips to mine Monero very well, but the efficiency wasn't even really above the most modern AMD Ryzen processors. So to have the best mining experience, you literally just build a gaming computer with a nice high-end Ryzen 9, or you can even go even higher with a Threadripper. At some level, the return is not as great as if you just stuck with the more efficient Ryzen series, the enthusiast ones. But that is how that is the way you mine out. You don't have to go out of your way to buy some really expensive ASIC you get from China that was probably already used for months before you bought it. You just build a gaming computer and you use your CPU. And this tries to return to the one CPU, one vote model where everyone gets to be a part of the network, and it helps to decentralize it further. And another point I don't think I put on this slide here is P2Pool. So another issue overall with mining, and Monero is no stranger to this as well. Mining gets centralized also due to mining pools. And Monero has mining pools that has a lot of hash rate as well. One of the pools right now has, I think, around 35% of the hash rate. So that's quite a lot for a single pool to have. So recently, within the past couple of years, there's been developed what's called P2Pool, which is basically a decentralized pool. And the reason why people will join a mining pool instead of mining solo by themselves is because if you mine solo, you have to find a block to get a reward, right? In order to get any reward, you have to find a block, which if you're a single computer, that might take a while. It'll probably happen at some point, but it could take a month, could take several months, could take years, maybe even a decade to find just one block. However, with mining pools, they are able to give you small amounts of rewards over time just for mining on that pool. And they are the ones who finds the block, right? So you're consolidating mining efforts into a single entity, and they will give you small rewards over time, and people like that. So P2Pool tries to create that, but in a way that's decentralized. It is basically a decentralized mining pool. So for people who want to receive those small, consistent rewards over time, they can use P2Pool to do that, and it's not centralizing hash rate, but around a single entity. And we've started to see P2Pool get quite a lot of bit of more hash rate over the past month. There's been some new protocols like Tari that's actually merge mining with Monero using P2Pool. So that's what we really want to see. But P2Pool is going to help out a lot with preventing this sort of centralization behind mining pools, because that is a big issue that Bitcoin has as well. So the last point regarding improvements for Monero is tail emission. So this is, once again, in the common theme of trying to deal with these issues that Bitcoin has, these long-term issues that haven't been dealt with. Monero tries to address this potential issue of lack of security for mining. So Bitcoin has this thing called the halvening. Every several years at a specific interval, the mining reward for Bitcoin gets cut in half. And eventually, it is going to be no reward at all. So miners are going to have zero reward for mining from the block itself. They will be rewarded only from transaction fees, because on a proof-of-work blockchain, the miners get two things. They get the block reward, they get transaction fees. Bitcoin eventually will no longer have a block reward, and that'll bring up some serious concerns with the security of the network, because if it's suddenly not profitable to mine Bitcoin anymore, that could cause a lot of miners to drop out, which cause the hash rate to go down, which makes it much more easy for a large entity to prop up a lot of hash rate, potentially maliciously, right? In a proof of work blockchain, there's a concern of a 51% attack. If one entity has more than 51% of the hash rate, they can do a lot of bad stuff, like censoring transactions or splitting the blockchain itself. And that's something that we want to stay away from. And Bitcoin removing the fee reward, the block reward, is a potential concern for making mining not profitable and causing a scenario like that. And even recently, we've seen some potential issues with Bitcoin mining not being that profitable. But then another issue is that, let's say that mining will still stay profitable. It might just make fees go up really high, because if there's no reward, the fees technically have to make up for that, right? So Bitcoin has already been historically very expensive to use over the past couple of years due to congestion. And if there's no block reward, fees got to make up for that even more. So that might just cause an even greater, higher fee environment, which would be very unideal. And so what Monero does, instead of having this hard limit that is 21 million in Bitcoin, I'm sure most people has heard Bitcoin has a limit of 21 million. That's what most people go behind. That's what the maxis love. They love the fact that it's hard. It's 21 million. It's never going to be more, even though they could change it in the future if they really wanted to. Monero doesn't do that. Monero technically has an unlimited supply, although it's a controlled supply. So it's not that there's just Monero being created left and right. It has what's called a tail emission. So Monero had a similar model to Bitcoin from when it first started out. It had a specific block reward, and that reward got cut in half at a specific interval. And now we're in what's called tail emission. So in 2022, Monero's block reward got cut for the last time to 0.6 XMR, and that's where it will stay forever. And that is important as it is providing security to the network, paying miners, trying to incentivize more people to mine to help decentralize the hash rate. And the main concern about this that people have is, well, Monero is technically inflationary. It always has a reward. But when we actually take a look at this amount and we stretch it out to a year, the actual inflation amount is so small. I think it's around 1%. And it's called tail emission because the actual inflation trends down every single year. Because it's the exact same amount every year, it's always going to be less and less every subsequent year, because it's going to have a slightly larger supply every year. So Monero's inflation is constantly trending towards zero while also providing security for the network. And there are some analysis that potentially shows that this amount that's created every year doesn't even make up for the amount of Monero that's actually lost, because people lose their wallets all the time. I mean, I work for a crypto app, and we have people coming to us all the time who didn't save their seed, and we can't give their money back. And the amount is so little that over time, it's just going to constantly trend towards deflation. And that just provides some security, while also making it so that it's not so much that it's going to be super inflationary, but it's really not. It's actually a pretty good system, I think. And to make it even better, if Monero starts to get a lot of transactional usage and a lot of more usage over the next couple years, like I mentioned before with dynamic block sizes, the actual block reward gets cut depending on how large the block size is. So there could be even less Monero created next year if there's a large amount of usage on the network and the block size stays larger with a less fee. So potentially for 1 year, it could be only 0.3 XMR for every block, depending on how large the block size is. So it's a very good balance of having a unlimited but controlled supply while also providing security to the network. So this one is a big question that a lot of people ask me, because this is actually a lot harder to do now. So because of how Monero works, because it provides this privacy, a lot of institutions and a lot of governments really don't like it, right? And I mean, I guess that kind of goes to show that it works. They really don't like it. And even though in the United States, it's not illegal whatsoever, it's fully legal to use it, to buy it, to own it, to sell it. There is a lot of exchanges that have chosen to either not list it, or they've chosen to delist it due to probably some backroom deals going on, backroom stuff between banking institutions, all that shadowy stuff. However, there is one exchange that still allows it in the United States, and that is Kraken. And I've used Kraken before. It is a KYC exchange, and so you do have to give them all your information, which is not ideal. Unfortunately, in the US, there's really no way around that if you want to just buy a bunch of crypto at one time. However, because it's Monero, when you withdraw that Monero from Kraken into a non-custodial wallet, it's pretty much good to go. Because of the privacy built into Monero, you can withdraw that Monero, and it's already private at that point. They can't really tie it to you much further than that. Now, there's a couple places where they could maybe get you. The one thing I would very much not recommend doing is withdrawing that Monero and then using that same wallet and then sending Monero back to your account. That kind of creates a closer graph that allows them to more easily see where your Monero might be going. However, that will be much less of a concern with the next hard fork with full chain membership Proofs++. What I recommend doing personally is if you were to buy Monero on Kraken, withdraw it into a single wallet, and then if you want to send some Monero from that wallet into another wallet, and only send Monero back to Kraken from the first wallet you withdrew from, if that makes sense. And that will just create a lot more privacy and potentially in the future when it becomes easier for them to basically prove the real spender of ring signatures, because down the road they'll probably be able to do that. But the hope is that it'll be so far down the road it won't really matter that much. But once again, in like a year, maybe 2 years-ish, the next hard fork will make this basically a non-issue. Another really easy and simple way people often use to get Monero is they buy something that's cheap and easily accessible, like Litecoin, and they will swap that directly to Monero. And you can use this using a myriad of swap sites. There's a lot of individual swap sites you could use to swap that Litecoin directly to Monero. Now, once again, you are potentially creating a transaction graph that you swap that Litecoin to Monero because it is transparent. However, you can use what's called MWeb, which is a privacy feature for Litecoin, which is an inside Cake wallet. And you can use that to swap your private Litecoin to Monero, which makes it much more hidden. The idea that you swapped your Litecoin to Monero makes that much harder to prove. And you can do this in multiple wallets. You can do this inside Cake Wallet directly, or you can use an external website. But the easiest way by far is just using Kraken. And there are peer-to-peer / decentralized ways. There are some that are coming soon that aren't out yet, like Sarai, which will be a decentralized exchange. But there are some ways right now you can also get Monero in a peer-to-peer way. And one of those ways is Havino / RitoSwap. So RitoSwap is basically an instance of Havino, and Havino is a fork of Bisq. Bisq is a very popular ledger / board for Bitcoin. It's a kind of a decentralized ledger for Bitcoin for putting up listings like, oh, I'm going to sell this amount of Bitcoin and you can pay me in PayPal. That's basically what RitoSwap is. You can put up a listing. If you're selling Monero, you can say, I have this much Monero. I'll let you buy this much using Venmo or Cash App or PayPal or like a bank account. And if you're someone who's interested in buying, then you can do just that. You can look at these listings and you can see, oh, I can buy this much Monero for PayPal directly, which you already have. And it'll be private in the sense that PayPal doesn't actually know that you're buying Monero because this transaction is being done between two individuals. And usually the person selling it will have you put some specific description in the payment, like, oh, for dog food or something. So it's not proven that you bought Monero specifically. And maybe hiding the fact you bought Monero isn't that concerning to you. But once again, we got to think of these things of not just being legal or illegal now, but maybe in the future. Like, maybe in the future, Monero will actually be illegal, and potentially just by having that private currency, maybe that'll make you sort of a target, right? So maybe you want to protect that ability to use a private sovereign currency in the future. And a couple of other ways. One way is Basic Swap, which is also a decentralized exchange. That one is work in progress. It's still being developed, but I believe you can use the Docker containers for it already. And then another way is XMR Bazaar. This is a more recent platform. It's sort of like an eBay for Monero, and there are people who put up some listings that they're selling a specific amount of Monero, and you would be able to pay for that with like whatever means that they choose to allow. So that could be like PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, and those are some easy ways you can get Monero. But if you want to be able to buy like instantly very small amounts, then Kraken would probably be the way to go to that. I just recommend withdrawing your Monero as soon as you can, because centralized exchanges have a tendency to shut down people's accounts for no reason at all, and you lose your money at that point. So, and the next slide, which is relating to the last one, withdrawing your funds from exchanges, how to actually use or store your Monero specifically. Here's a few Monero wallets. Wow, this thing really hates me, doesn't it? All right. The first one on the top, that's the wallet that I work on. It's called Cake Wallet. It is a non-custodial, open source, multi-currency cross-platform wallet. So it works on all the major platforms. It's primarily a mobile wallet, but you can use it on your desktop as well. Like you can use it on Linux. I use it on both iOS and Android. And it is a full wallet. So as you can see on the right, I have this column that's called wallet type. A full remote wallet is basically a wallet that does all the scanning for blocks locally, but uses a remote node. And then a full but with local wallet could be a full wallet that hosts a node locally. So Monero GUI, you can actually run a node on the device itself. And then a light wallet, which is at the bottom, which is Edge Wallet. A light wallet is a wallet that's using a light wallet protocol from Monero, and it has a server that actually does the scanning for you, which makes it very convenient. You open your wallet, it's immediately synchronized. However, technically that gives them a very great insight into the Monero you're receiving, right? And this will be made more private in the future. So at the moment, I don't recommend using a light wallet. I do recommend using at least a full wallet if you can afford the data requirements of scanning. It's not super huge, and it depends on your internet connection. Like most places in the United States, you'll be fine with a full wallet. It's the most private way to use Monero, besides maybe using a local node. But there's also Monero GUI, which is the official Monero GUI wallet for the desktop platforms. There's no official one for mobile, unfortunately. There's Stack Wallet, which was actually a fork of Cake Wallet, and it's kind of become its own thing now. It's similar to Cake, but with a different interface and some different features. And then there's Monero, which is one of the first Android wallets for Monero. That one is very good. It's just got a different functionality, different features. And then Edge Wallet is a mobile wallet as well, and that one is a light wallet, not a full wallet. And I will mention Cake Wallet is the first Monero wallet for iOS back in, I think, 2017 or 2018. So Cake Wallet's been around for quite a long time. And I think Monero might have been the first Monero wallet for Android, if I remember correctly. So I will actually shill Cake Wallet a little bit because I work for them. Cake Wallet is a private open source multi-currency non-custodial easy to use wallet. It's multi-platform. It supports tons of different currencies, like all the main ones really. Like obviously Monero is our main one. Monero was the first crypto that Cake Wallet supported. It also supports Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, Solana, Polygon. We're probably going to add more EVM chains later on. And it has some unique privacy features for Bitcoin and Litecoin as well, which don't make them as powerful as Monero, but these privacy features do improve the privacy on Bitcoin and Litecoin if you decide to use those chains. And it has built-in swaps, and it has built-in on and off ramps. Now, we're not actually facilitating those ourselves. We have third-party swap providers and third-party on and off ramps, and we will aggregate those for you and give you the best rate based on whatever quote you're trying to make. And of course, it's non-custodial, meaning it generates the keys locally on the device. And we have no insight into your wallets or your transaction history or how much you have. And that's really the real way, and that's the intended way to use crypto. The intended way to use crypto is not using Coinbase to send your Bitcoin. It's using a non-custodial wallet on your device locally. And then on the topic of how to spend Monero, I actually use Monero quite a bit, and there's a lot of cool ways you can spend your Monero, especially recently. So one of those is XMR Bazaar, which I mentioned a little bit ago. That is basically an eBay for Monero. There's a lot of stuff on there, random stuff, some cool stuff. And if you go to the website, you can see all the listings they have. It kind of looks like eBay. You've got video games, you've got food, you've got like utilities, like you could buy like, I think, hand soap on there, and you can buy all that stuff with Monero. And they've got multiple ways to facilitate the transactions. They have a bond feature, and they do have an escrow, a non-custodial escrow, to help give you some seller or buyer protection, so to speak. And another cool project is XMR Chat. Now, if you are a live streamer, this is very cool. This allows you to receive super chats using Monero or Bitcoin or Litecoin, and I think maybe Lightning now. And it works directly with OBS, so it has a browser view you can add to OBS, and when somebody sends in a super chat with like the amount of Monero, it'll show up on the browser view in OBS, and it'll show the message, and you can kind of control how that looks, and you can control if they're private or public donations. And Monero.com is very old. It's been around for quite a while. It is a directory, just a massive directory that has tons of websites and services that let you pay with Monero. And then KYC.me is similar. However, it is a digital only website that has lots of different services online. So it showcases a bunch of VPNs, VPSs, and it kind of gives them a privacy and KYC rating. Depending on how private they are, depending on what information they want. So you can kind of filter and find the most private services if you want to use those, like swaps, VPS services, VPNs, etc. And then BTC Pay is basically a point of sales server, which can be used in-store or online. This is incredibly popular with Bitcoiners, but there's also a Monero plugin for BTC Pay server that's actually currently in the process of being rewritten. But BTC Pay server is also very popular to use for Monero. It does require some infrastructure, so you do have to have a server to run it. Runs usually in Docker containers. And then it has to run a full node for every crypto you want to accept. But it is very powerful. It has a lot of features. It's very good for accounting if you need to account of all your transactions. So if you are a merchant that needs to sell stuff online, BTC Pay is definitely one of the better ways to go. And then a more recent addition to this, and this list is, all these lists I have are very non-exhaustive. These are just some of the ones that stood out to me. There are a lot of other solutions that you could find online. Another one of these is Open Crypto Pay. This is a more recent one created by DFX, which is this Swiss exchange. And Open Crypto Pay is a point of sales, sort of point of sale system in store that gives the merchant a QR code that the wallet is able to scan to pay for stuff in store. So this is actually something that has sort of spread out in Switzerland specifically, is this Open Crypto Pay system is being used by what's called Spar, which is this grocery/convenience store. And a lot of these, dozens of these Spar stores started using Open Crypto Pay. So you can pay in store for whatever they have at the store, food, utilities. You can pay in store using Monero, using a compatible wallet that's compatible with Open Crypto Pay. And Cake Wallet is compatible with Open Crypto Pay. So you can pay for Monero, or you can pay with Bitcoin at these Spar stores using Open Crypto Pay. And the hope is that more retailers and more businesses will take a look at this solution and try to accept it. And one of the issues that Open Crypto Pay really tries to address is that a lot of merchants, they are interested in accepting crypto, but they don't want to hold the crypto. They don't know what to do with it. So Open Crypto Pay has some solutions in the background to convert the cryptocurrency into fiat for that business. And right now, it only works in Switzerland specifically. But there's hopefully they'll start to bring this to other countries so that they can use it to convert to their local currency. And some of my favorites personally that I've used to buy before. So Molvad, I'm sure a lot of people here have heard of or used Molvad. Molvad's a VPN service. They let you pay directly with Monero. They don't require an email address or an address. They just create a account identifier for you, which is basically your account login. And you can pay for Monero. So it's actually a private way to pay for a VPN, unlike using something like your credit card or PayPal. And jmp.chat is basically a VoIP service. So one of my phone numbers, I converted from a real phone number to a VoIP phone number, or voice over IP phone number, which is basically an internet phone number. And it allows me to use my number when I'm only on Wi-Fi, and I can be in airplane mode at all times. And you can pay for that number with Monero. And it's using XMPP to provide the sort of infrastructure for sending you text back and forth. So you can use an XMPP client, or you can use their custom one called Chiogram. And it works pretty well. And you can pay directly for your service with Monero or Bitcoin Cash. And they even offer data-only eSIMs. Similar to SilentLink, and I actually have SilentLink on one of my phones here. It is a eSIM provider that you can pay for directly with Monero. And you don't require any other information. All you got to do is pay Monero for the eSIM. You can get phone numbers, and you can get data-only eSIMs. And then you can top it up as you go. So I have the data-only plus eSIM that I can credit my account, and the data never expires. You just top it off as you use it, essentially. And so that's very great if you don't use data that often. You just use it every so often. You just have it ready to go whenever you need it. There's a lot of food options you can pay for with Monero too. Obviously the biggest use case of Monero is, if we're being honest, probably a lot of it's drugs on the dark net. But I won't talk about that. Online services like VPNs, like privacy-oriented stuff, that is a very common use case of Monero. But also more recently, there's a lot of people that are selling food, like local family-owned businesses selling food online for Monero. And so Gratuitous is a program that was started by one of my friends, and Gratuitous tries to facilitate direct ordering of coffee from farmers. So within Gratuitous on the website, you're able to order coffee that ships directly from Guatemalan farmers straight to your house, and they will go out and pick it and roast it the day that you order it. So it's incredibly fresh, and you can pay for that directly with Monero. In fact, you have to. They don't even accept credit cards. So they kind of get you hooked. If someone gives you a sample, they really like it. How do I buy this? Well, you got to use crypto, right? And they try to facilitate direct sales of coffee from farmers, which is gets it really fresh to you and also gives them most of the profit instead of going through like 10 hands just to get to the United States. And another one is AUPA or UPA bars. So these are basically, they're called pemmican bars, which is a type of beef bar. These are really, really good. They're basically like beef protein bars, right? They're grounded up grass-fed beef, and it comes with raw honey and beef tallow and butter. And they have a couple other flavors like almond and blueberry, and they're very, very good. And you can pay them directly with Monero. In fact, if you buy these with crypto, either Bitcoin or Monero, you get 10% off. So you might as well if you can. And then the last one I have on this page is Barn Jerky. This guy just sells beef jerky for Monero, and you can buy it directly on his website. Very good beef jerky. Highly recommend. And he accepts several different cryptocurrencies. And if you were wanting to run Monero, I think I'm getting close on time here. If you want to actually run Monero, here's a few options for you. If you want to host your own node, or if you want to mine. So the ones on the left here, the nodes, some of these are node solutions. Some of these are more broader, self-hosted piece, easy to use computers that have a Monero node app for them. So Monero Nodo is literally just a device that's basically been designed to run a Monero node. It comes with all the software built into it. It's supposed to be a plug-and-play solution. You buy the device and you plug it in, you turn it on, and everything should pretty much be set up for you. Now, if you want to use that node on the ClearNet, obviously you have to have a domain, you have to port forward, but it has built-in Tor daemon, and because of how Tor has NAT traversal, you can use that node directly from wallet apps on your phone that support Tor. Monero Suite is just an easy-to-use tool that will basically handle all of the configuration and setup of the Docker containers on a Linux server for running Monero node. So that's a really easy tool to use that just makes it easy to see all the options you have for setting up a node, and it does most of the work for you, creating the Docker compose file for running all the software that includes. And then Umbrel and Start9, those are both easy to use self-hosted PC solutions that you buy this device directly from them. It comes with the software, and both of those devices have a Monero app. Actually, I know Umbrel does. I don't remember off the top of my head if Start9 does. I believe it does. But Monero GUI is what I showed earlier, the official Monero GUI platform for desktops. That one allows you to run a local node directly just through the GUI application on the desktop. And you don't necessarily have to run a full or even a pruned node. I would recommend, if you're interested and you want to do it, but you don't have to necessarily to gain extra privacy. You're pretty good using existing trusted nodes, but if you want to guarantee more safety for yourself, then you can choose to run a node if you have the resources available. Running a pruned node would take around 70 to 80 gigabytes of data. A full node, I believe, is around 350 to 400 gigabytes, so it's a lot more. And it'll probably be a lot more over time as there's more Monero transactions, because Monero transactions are larger than Bitcoin transactions due to the privacy features. But it's still, the requirements are still not super high. So if you want to run one, you totally can. And then for mining, there's a few easy options for mining here. Monero GUI, once again, lets you mine directly inside of the wallet app itself, but you do have to download a node to do that. So you do have to download a full node to mine. You can do solo mining, or you can do P2 pool mining, the decentralized mining pool. GUPAX is a GUI. It's on GitHub. It has a GitHub repo. It's open source. You can download it. It is basically just an easy-to-use GUI tool that's built in Rust for enabling mining Monero, and it has XMRig built into it. And XMRig is basically a standalone command line tool you can use to mine Monero. You can mine locally on another system that has a node, or you can mine using a mining pool. And that is, yeah, so please all my slides. And if you want to download Cake Wallet and try it out, Cake Wallet is, once again, it's an open source multi-cryptocurrency wallet. It is very, very popular Monero wallet. I can't guarantee it because we don't track our users, we don't have telemetry, but I strongly believe it is the most popular Monero wallet. I have reason to believe that. And if you do want to try it out, you can scan that QR code. It does, once again, work on the mobile devices. It is a mobile-first wallet. However, we do have support for desktop like Linux, and it has several features, like it has background sync, for which helps a lot out with Monero to help not have to sync as much. Only on Android, though, not iOS, because Apple makes things really difficult. It has lots of other currencies as well, lots of privacy features, like you can lock down the wallet behind TOTP codes if you want to, and you can even use it with cold wallets. So if you have like a Ledger device already, you can use Ledger directly with Cake Wallet. Yeah, so any questions? I guess I don't have someone to hand this down, so I'll bring it over to you.
Yes, sir. So, and I think you touched on this briefly when discussing XMR Bazaar as for non-custodial escrow. So I know with Bitcoin and Litecoin, we can do like 2 of 3 multi-signature wallets and that sort of thing. How is there a way to implement something similar with Monero for non-custodial escrow purposes?
Yes, and I couldn't speak to the details of that directly, but XMR Bazaar does have a non-custodial multi-sig escrow solution. So I would recommend taking a look at that if you want to see how that works. And it's more of a newer thing, like doing multi-sig in Monero has been difficult in the past, but it's gotten better for sure. But I can't speak to that directly because I didn't implement it. I just know that there's a way to make it work. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.